Hi, happy Monday, Motivation Monday. Just gonna do a quick check-in, a quick live. I promise to do lives Mondays in the afternoon like this around 3:30. Something just to motivate myself and to motivate you out there if you so wish to check out my lives and my videos. Make sure you're liking, make sure you're sharing, make sure we are carrying on the work of mental health care, talking about mental health, healing, healing from trauma, healing from breakups, healing from difficult relationships, healing from childhood trauma, all things relational trauma, healing, and recovery. You cannot heal what you choose to bury under. You cannot heal what you choose to pretend is not there. You cannot heal what it's you're being delulu about. You cannot sometimes heal only by spiritual warfare. I've been there, done that. It's just gonna eventually start to heal, eat you up. Hi Lexi, thank you for checking me out. I just do this Monday lives now. I was gonna do it once a month, but now I'm like, hey, when I get a minute on Monday afternoons, I jump on here and talk a little bit about healing from trauma. It's a real thing. Trauma can really leave you crippled, especially when you've been through the childhood trauma. You're carrying that load, is on you. You're working on yourself, you're healing, you're searching your soul. You might be praying about it too. So you be service just to get out of your own way so you can think about other people. You might have be raising kids mostly by yourself. And when you have trauma on top of that, whew, and it can leave you feeling on edge, in some cases even paranoid. Trauma can leave you feeling irritable easily. Trauma can leave you feeling overwhelmed easily. Trauma can leave you feeling like you want to isolate yourself. Trauma will make you feel like people don't understand where you come from. Trauma might make you so many different ways, even from how you take care of yourself to how you take care of your children. It can make you feel like you want to just wrap them up in a certain wrap and cover them up because you don't want them to experience that same level of neglect, abandonment, or pain that you experience. And now layer with that, if you end up in a toxic, narcissistic, difficult, high conflict relationship that you deem was gonna last a long time. You guys were gonna roll together, make it work, partner, have that sway of a relationship where you're looking out for each other, or most of many times because you have their trauma. Most of the time you might be a people pleaser. So in that relationship, you might find yourself doing much more than you might have done if you didn't have trauma. And then that person leaves you, abandons you, or in typical narcissistic relationship, discards of you as if you're nothing, as if you're like gum on the bottom of their shoes, and they just throw you off on the side of the road and just go cold. They start stonewalling you, distancing themselves. And in many, many, many cases, even when that happened, the abandonment, the neglect, psychologically becomes more of tracts where you're feeling paranoid. And now when you have a history of trauma, that paranoia can have a triple effect. You're checking your doors, you're checking your windows. You might have a bunch of alarms to make you feel safe, but that's your trauma response. And it's okay to safeguard yourself. It's okay to realize that it's not everyone in this life who rolls like you do, who you might say, I love you in a relationship and mean it. I love you meaning you are there fully. I love you to them might not be that. I love you to them might mean that you are there to be subservient to them. I love you to that partner who is high conflict, difficult, narcissistic. And I'm just talking about, in intimate relationships here. Those relationships can go beyond. It can be a relationship with a boss. It can be a relationship in your siblinghood. It can be a relationship with your parents or your mother. It can be a relationship with a friend. Friendship relationships, as we age, gets more difficult. And you have a friend who has difficult, toxic, high conflict, narcissistic. They want to make you feel bad. That's a whole different layer. So I'm looking at relational trauma and healing from it with a special highlight on intimate relationships. So be mindful about what you mean and what they mean by I love you. So sometimes we go in there with people pleaser mode to overdo, to say, oh, if I overdo this and that or the other, maybe they will see me. Thank you so much, guys, for checking me out this afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, Brosel, if I'm saying your name right. This is so true. The trauma response is very real. Oh, yeah. Hey, Black Queen. Thank you. Hi. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the compliments. Share your comments. Share your trauma walk, your experiences with trauma and trauma healing. I mean, trauma can cause you to be so anxiously attached to relationship because at the core of you, as a child, I've seen this in practice as a psych nurse practitioner doing this work for years. You see how debilitating this can be, not just on you yourself, but even on your children, especially as a woman. Dr. Spirit said this and said it so well. The health of the children, especially in toxic, high conflict relationships. Remember how I mentioned some of these relationships, including intimate relationship, is highly based on the happiness of the mother. So when you have to sit there and realize the patterns of whoever you are in that relationship with, look at the pattern and brutally accept what it is that you're seeing. The thing is, sometimes we start to pretend like we don't see what we see, or we think we can pray away what we are seeing, or we think we can overdo ourselves to get them to change. And many a times, you're going to spend months, you're going to spend years, you're going to spend decades, like in my case, over a decade long marriage that I thought, by me overdoing, by me cooking, by me loving, by me praying, by me fasting, by me taking care of the kids, the home, by me listening, by me shushing, by me not nagging, by me just being there and just being me, by me being a certain weight, by me having a certain makeup or no makeup, because if they don't like makeup, and yet they got you. And then all of a sudden they're like, I don't like your makeup. You look ugly without hair like that. Well, if you knew you didn't like somebody with that hair like that, you shouldn't have gotten with them. But you see what I mean? People, especially a lot of men out there, I'm not saying all men, but there's a lot of men out there who have control. They have their own insecurities at the core of it. They have their own traumas at the core of it. And you as a woman, you haven't done the healing within yourself from your childhood trauma, you're going to attract somebody with likewise presentation because that's what you're familiar with. So really recognizing it and doing the work, especially as we women, people pleaser women, women with history of trauma, women with history of anxiety, depression, of being neglected, of having different types of abuse as children, you got to work on the healing so that you have that sense of joy at the core of it, that sense of stability in your emotional regulation. So that generational trauma that doesn't carry on over to your children, to your girl child, to your boy child, because you want to break those generational traumas. This work goes beyond just praying it away. Like I said, I've been there over a decade long of prayer, of crying, of wearing his, I was told, wear his shirt and go to bed with it. Pray over his pillow, anoint the doors, anoint the oils, when he doesn't call you this and that. Today's topic, I couldn't find a way to title it in there when I was getting on the live, is the power of choice. The power of autonomy, autonomy. But it's too long of a Monday. The power of having autonomy. And not to be cocky, as women, yes, we have our demeanor of being caring, of vessels to bless and grow and nourish our children and the people around us. That's why as women we gather. That's why how about 90% of people in the church communities are women, because we are nurturing, we like service, we like to gather, we like community. That's why we have our girlfriends. A lot of men don't, and based on the way they roll, we women have to realize that we are different from them. But at the same time, we also have to realize we have the power of choice. We have autonomy. We have the power to make a decision to stay or not stay and to leave. Oh, hi from UK, Ramen Queen. I love that. Thank you for checking me out all the way from where you are. I hope over here on the East Coast is a little cool, but thank you for checking me out. We're talking about trauma healing. We're talking about the power of choice. We're talking about having come through trauma from childhood, but at the same time, healing enough to not be in survival mode, but honing in to be in thriving mode so we can start to break generational traumas, not just wishing it or praying for it. You know what? I believe that as a believer, I'm a believer. So I'm always, that's why my channel is called God and Therapy. God and therapy, God and therapy. God wants us to take action. If you're a believer here, you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. What we hide, what we don't talk about, what we sit there and cover up, what we say, oh, what happens behind closed doors stays beyond closed doors, will eat you up and cut you at the knees and get you out here quicker than you ever wish it to be. So we have the power of choice. The choice to really know that we can choose our emotions. This is one thing I learned in the past few years, and more so honing into that the past few months, honestly. To know that when you wake up, especially when you wake up with trauma, the irritability is real. Like it just comes on you. You wake up and you're just like, I don't want to be. Sometimes you might even have thoughts of feeling like you don't want to be here. Like real, you don't feel like being here. You don't want to engage. You don't want to go to work. You don't want to take care of your kids. You don't feel like it, but you know you have to. That's where you slowly get that shit off of you and get up. But you have the choice. So one of the things that I find within that work of healing regarding the power of choices, I tell myself, because subconsciously my mind or our mind and many of my clients identify with this will automatically go to, oh my God, this is so hard, this is so sad. Oh, you can just hone in all those negative thoughts and energy and sadness of things you don't have, or what you wish you had, or how you wish they didn't work out on you, or how you wish this and that or the other things were different, you had more money, all that. But you change it to saying, I'm grateful that I woke up. I'm grateful that I'm here. I'm grateful that I can go to work. I'm grateful that this and that and the other. So you just change that. You choose your emotion. What can you bring to the day rather than waiting to see what the day will bring to you? I think there's a commercial like that, which I love. But yeah, you have the power to choose your emotions, and the power to change your emotions come from you actually either verbalizing it, saying it to yourself out loud, or just quietly saying it to yourself while you're doing your meditation and prayer before you write your journal. And that's another thing too that I encourage in the power of choice, is to write a journal, like in the morning if you can, dedicating 5-10 minutes in the morning or through the day, and just purge out any type of negative thoughts that might be ruminating in your head that can cause you to run on. Have you ever been in so much rumination in your thoughts of all the stuff that on you, it's just on you, that you're like walking through the grocery store and you're just talking to yourself, like you catch yourself like, oh my God, like, and somebody looks at you weird, like, I was just talking to myself. But it's so real. That's why it's so important to notice that and start to do the work on ourselves to change the emotion. But you cannot just change it. You have to really be intentional. In the morning, especially if you're one who's like me, who has more anxiety right from waking up, like the day is just getting at you. You gotta get the kids ready. Most of the time by yourself. I was married over a decade long, and I did a video one time that was titled Marriage but Single. And it's a sad truth. But many of us women live it, if you're being honest with ourselves or not. And we still have to go to work and work at full-time jobs, sometimes two jobs, and still pay a good number of the bills. You wake up and you're like so anxious about the kids, about the money, about groceries, about being able to afford to pay for water or groceries or the rent or the mortgage, and on you go. So that can hit you right in the morning or even throughout your day, where those thoughts will just come in your head. Or you're going grocery shopping, all of a sudden like, what card am I going to use? Do I have enough money in there? Even just to check your balance, you're like scared to even look, because you're like, I will find it to not be enough to cover this. I've been there where I have to go to Coinstar and be like, okay, let me get that coin in there and see how much comes out, so I can add it on to whatever might be in the credit card or debit card. Was I able to pay? All these thoughts, because the economy be economy, adulting be adulting. But you have the power, trust it, within those moments to even hone in on, change your emotions from the anxiety, ruminating thoughts, telling yourself it's gonna be all right, to changing your emotions to, I choose that I'm going to smile today no matter what is happening. Because you know what? The stars who have all the money in Hollywood and all the richest places, many of them are suffering the same suffering that we suffer with money. Because as you know, money doesn't solve all of it. Because some of them might also have their own history of trauma and addiction and their abuse. Money is not the end of it all. But sometimes, unfortunately, your relationship, or you might be in relationship with somebody who might be too busy chasing that and neglect you, neglect the family, neglect all of it, all the nuclear family you're creating. And that might have been your story growing up too, as a little girl, little boy version of yourself, where you realize that growing up, you were emotionally neglected by your parents. You were raised by your grandparents for the most part. You were raised by an auntie or a friend. You were mostly in your auntie's house. And so that neglect, that abandonment sits in your chest. Now you have anxiety, you have an anxious attachment because you never had anybody affirm you. Now you're in this relationship with somebody who is not willing to partner with you, and you're finding yourself to be alone. You're finding yourself to roll by yourself. You're finding yourself constantly anxious, constantly having to do the heavy lifting of making the relationship and the family work. And it's really, truly difficult. But I'm here to tell you, as difficult as it is, you can hone in into the power of a choice. What do they mean by what do they mean by love? Especially if you're here and you're dating, right? Some of us have been there and done that. Lesson learned. That's why I do what I do, to pass it along to the newest people who are going into dating. Ask them, what do you mean? Or if you're like me, being married over a decade, now looking into dating again. Maybe I know too much. Sometimes that's also a thing, like knowing too much from previous relationship and healing and knowing what the red flags look like. You're like, what do you mean by that? Right? You choose your emotion. The other thing too is setting boundaries. So you're setting boundaries within yourself. So really the power of choice to choose your emotions is another way to set boundaries within yourself, setting the limit within yourself. So if you leave this mind to just go, it will just go wild. Your mind will keep going wild. So the boundary you're setting is setting it within yourself by choosing how far that mind will go into rumination, into paranoia, into anxiety. Sometimes you can go into even into hallucinations. If you can develop a healthy mind, your ability or your propensity to go into really debilitating depression, psychosis, and all that stuff is a little lessened, right? So the next step is to really holding it to boundary with other people. As a people pleaser, as a recovering people pleaser myself, including many of my clients that I've been working with for many years now, it's so difficult to set boundaries. And sometimes to set boundaries with people, but then you get guilty, you get sad, you get scared of once again going to that anxious attachment. You're like, if I set boundaries with them, what if they're not my friend anymore? What if they leave you? Then that goes back to knowing that you have that autonomy, that you're here for a purpose. That even if they leave you, guess what? If you're a believer like me, God got your back. The helpers, the people that will come along your way to pave the way, to fill in the gap, to help you, whatever capacity they will help you to the next level, they will come along, they will align. But that comes from you professing that, you embodying that, you knowing that it's so crucial to set those boundaries within yourself and set those boundaries with others. Where, let's say, certain times you cannot, because you want to dedicate that time to your kiddos, you want to dedicate that time to your self-care, to you reading a book, reading Bible, journaling, to doing something that's soothing, going on a hike, you're listening to music, you're taking care of your skin, your hair, you're drinking water, you're eating wholesome food, you're dedicating some time to go to maybe a farmer's market, because sometimes it's cheaper, you find good wholesome foods, going to the farmer's market, but you need that time to plan all these things. But if you're not setting boundaries and everybody's just taking off your time, as me, as a people pleaser, I used to say yes to everything. My plate will be so full, somebody comes to me and be like, hey, Gina, can you do this? And I'm like, instead of saying, oh, can you give me a minute? Okay, you give me a day, I'll get back to you. Let me check my calendar. Let me check my calendar for the week. Maybe I can help you, but in this capacity. Maybe I can help you, but maybe XYZ can help you. Here's the number. Maybe I can help you, but maybe in 2-3 weeks, I might have 30 or an hour to help you. And this is how much I can help you. But see, it comes with you knowing who you are in the first place. I was not taught these things as a child version of myself. Actually, my culture growing up, where I grew up in Ghana, in Africa, and migrating here, emotional needs are not a thing that is ever talked about or addressed to children. You have a roof over your head, you got food, sometimes minimal food, then you're fine. They're not even dealing with your psychological or emotional needs. Let alone teach you how to set boundaries within yourself and boundaries with other people. They actually tell you, like, you have you remember my parents be like, yeah, go hug the uncle. You're like, you don't want to give that uncle a hug because you feel uncomfortable. Or maybe that uncle was maybe touching you the wrong way or doing weird comments and you don't feel comfortable. But these are things they don't teach us, to set boundaries with our spaces and set boundaries within ourselves. But I'm here to tell you, so important to not put too much on your plate. In the power of choice, you're able to tell people, even people you perceive to be above you, people you perceive to be like maybe leaders, or in my community, in my culture, we reverence a lot of, especially male people, who we feel like, no, say male people. I was like, male people are like a whole different entity. Like males that we think are leaders in our communities. Like, how dare you even say you're gonna check and tell them? Like, you're even calling them your own. You stand up to take up the call. They're not even seeing you, but you're giving them reverence in your own space. But this is how we've been cultured in society, to say that reverence. You cannot set boundaries. You cannot tell them, I'll call you back. You cannot tell them, hey, I gotta go. But that comes with knowing you, setting those boundaries and developing your sense of self, your sense of worthiness, your sense of confidence. When you've been through trauma and abuse and neglect, your self-worth is down the tubes. But then you're still here. You can start working on yourself, working on your inner being, working on those boundaries, working on knowing you, that you're here for a purpose, working on your finances, working on taking classes to better yourself so you're not in that vulnerable space. The more vulnerable you are, especially as a single mother or as a mother in general, the more vulnerable you are, especially financially. I've been there. I told you the story where I had to go to Coinstar. I was married. But money is another way that your partner can weaponize that against you to leave you stuck, to leave you trapped, to leave you where you cannot leave. Even if you consider leaving, you're going to be scared. But that's where you're telling yourself all these things. You're making plans. You're taking those classes. Sometimes it might be just a certificate. And that certificate will give you the confidence to start doing something, working from home, maybe, working another job, doing something that brings you purpose and confidence. You see what I'm saying? So, is that power within you to set those boundaries? And then also minimizing the stories you're telling yourself about yourself. So sometimes we get shamed. For many times, for me, I was so in such a struggle about where I've been, even with the trauma of my relationship. I hid it for so many years where I felt like, what am I? I'm not worth anything. All the stories that I was telling myself, then I realized, oh my gosh, so many people were going through those. So many people were in those same scenarios as me. So there's power in owning our stories and sharing our stories as safely and or as much as we can in order to really hone in on who we truly are. So many people also, many men in regards to like really getting you in a vulnerable spot, they might hone you on you being very naive, right? Being naive. I told you my struggle with people pleasing and with my trauma is be naive. Like you intellectually know something, but you're not street smart. You think everybody rolls like you. That's why I was saying it's so important to really hone in on what the love that you're telling that person means. So when you know what they mean and what you mean, you can come to an agreement. But the fact is, when you are naive and think everybody thinks or rolls like you, and that's where they can weaponize your vulnerability. So weaponizing your vulnerability leaves you in a space where they can take advantage of you. They can really discard of you very easily, and you are going to feel hurt. But guess what? When you're confident and you have things going for you, even if they did that, the impact is lessened than other way around, where you're calling and begging, you lose your boundaries because you feel like if they leave you, there's nothing else for you. When they leave you, you're going to literally fall apart. You cannot do life. You cannot live your life. But here I'm trying to tell you, you have the power of choice. So power of choice to choose your emotions every day, every morning, every day. Power to set boundaries within yourself and set boundaries with other people and being okay with it. Asking as a bonus, what do they mean at the initial stages of love? What do they mean by love? What does this definition of love? Are they wanting to love you in a way that if only you're doing for them, you're serving them, you're malleable, you're naive, they can control every aspect of you, and that's what their definition of love is. So sometimes you ask them, but watch their patterns. Watch their patterns with other people. What's their pattern when you go out? Watch and be present with what they're showing you, whether you're dating or in a relationship, so it doesn't leave you like some of us years and even sometimes over decades before you have the awakening to know, oh no, this isn't right. This is not right. And be mindful. Those people don't always come in like they're looking like they're caricature or they're not well dressed. Sometimes they're the most well put together people. And those people can still take advantage of you by knowing that you have the power of choice and really honing on some of the steps that I told you in that week, adding more as we go along to know that you have the power of choice despite your trauma, that you can heal your trauma and become a whole wholesome version of yourself. So, on the power choice today, that ends my life. I usually try to keep it sweet and short, 20-30 minutes. Don't want to bore you. Go follow me on TikTok, on YouTube. On Mondays, I will be doing my lives. Might be doing some lives on TikTok too. Drop me some questions. Put in some comments in some of my videos. Some of my videos can be controversial, but hey, these are all things that we need to be talking about in our societies and honing in as a collective to continue to heal and do the work of healing our childhood trauma, as well as whatever traumas that come along the way, including divorce trauma, separation trauma, single motherhood trauma, betrayal trauma, healing from narcissistic trauma, to healing from abuse, neglect, and all of that stuff. Thank you so much, guys, for checking me out. Thank you, Ramen. Thank you, all of you guys who had Lex. If you're still there, I know people, it's Monday, people have things to go doing, but hey, hopefully you check me out next time. I wish you all a great day. Bye.